Welcome to Brutally Honest Talk Radio, where you will learn about an issue minus the BS. We don't always say what you want to hear, but what you need to hear about the issues of the day. Here's your host, Inger, along with Elmo, with his political insight and commentary.
And where would you like to start today?
I want to start today. I definitely got to go into following up from the last story about the incident in Rochester, New York. And since we did that show, I found out that the officers involved in arresting a 9-year-old girl have been suspended with pay. And this is everyone who was involved with the girl and her mother, because we saw that it was like 8 officers. If anybody sees a video, it's like 8 or 10 officers there. So they were suspended. And I'm glad that I saw the video and heard the audio before I heard the news about them getting suspended. So, I guess we'll start with that. Do you think there was anything aggressive or over the top or unprofessional about how they handled it?
I didn't see anything that was. I thought they were handling it the best way that they could, depending upon the circumstances. So I don't understand why they would be suspended, other than it went viral. People are talking, and they haven't had a chance to really discuss what's going on.
The politics of it and the pressure on their sergeant or supervisor, superior, chief police, whoever. And when something is happening, whether it's a body cam from a police officer, whatever it is, nobody ever thinks it's going to make national news. No one ever thinks that this is going to be all over the place. And I think that if it had stayed a local story, that there would be less pressure. Yeah, anyone who can show us where these officers, they arrive on the scene and they're calm and they're not talking to anybody in a disrespectful way. The people who are over the top and resisting are the mother and the daughter. And they're trying to talk to them. And after lots of pleading and trying to coerce them to cooperate and trying to get the girl to get in the car, then she was handcuffed. Even after being handcuffed, there was resistance because the pepper spray came after the handcuffs. It's not like that said, okay, standard operating procedure, clink, clink, we got the cuffs on you, and now the pepper spray, it didn't go like that. It should be a very, very unusual occurrence when they have to use the pepper spray. I'm thinking they use that less than they use the handcuffs. This is like someone is in custody. We're trying to bring them in, and they're still not complying with us. So that's it. And then, my plea to anyone that is listening that thinks that I'm being unreasonable or that the police are justified in being suspended, please show us how. Like the videos, they have timelines. You can say what minute, what second, where whatever went down that you think is inappropriate or over the line. The other thing I'll say is the first website, I don't know if it was Washington Post or wherever this was, the first place that I saw this article, the name of the article was 9-year-old black girl is pepper sprayed by Rochester police, something like that. So it's like, why are we bringing race into it? Like, y'all doing that just to get clickbait or just to get people's emotions up, or like you didn't think that they would tune in or read the article unless it was black, which the inference that someone is mistreated or being denied of their rights or being taken advantage of, because it's a black girl, and we know how they've been treating us, especially over the last year.
Yeah, it's again, they need somebody to click on the article. I mean, honestly, it could just have been titled 9-year-old girl gets pepper sprayed. the kid just said that and been done.
Yeah.
But when you enter race into it and that sort of thing, again, without even knowing the full spectrum of what's going on, without knowing everything that happened and that sort of thing, the media just stirring things up unnecessarily and not getting the full story. They're just going off of whatever gets them hits on a website. That's not journalism, obviously.
You remember how when we were discussing this happening last week and talking about the story, we were talking about how it's usually the procedure where the female officers will handle the women or the female suspects. How much do you want to bet that one day they're going to have black officers arresting black people? And let's leave the white officers for the white people, because police departments, they don't want to get sued and the thing go national. And I wonder what they would say or what they could say if all of the officers who put their hands on the mother and the daughter were black. Now, what are you going to say? Would it have even been a story?
It's just it's making policing more and more difficult, unnecessarily difficult. There's gotta be an end to this somewhere. It's gotta stop. Just has to stop. It's too much. It's way too much.
Also came out recently that Black Lives Matter is nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. And I saw the post on your Facebook page with the meme from, what is the name of that website that does the parodies?
Babylon Bee.
Babylon Bee, right. I saw that where they actually said Black Lives Matter protesters nominated, but this is still very similar. And it brings me to the question of all the protests, all the violent protests, all the stuff that went down with Black Lives Matter in the last 12 months where people got hurt. Where were the leaders of that organization? Were they out there on the street leading those people? When they were towing the line with the cops and shouting is going on. I mean, people are wearing Black Lives Matter t-shirts and sweatshirts, so they're representing you. If you're not going to be on the front line when the violence goes down, at least come out and make a public statement and say, look, this isn't what we're about. We're about saving Black lives. We're about fighting for rights or whatever it is. But I haven't heard the leaders of BLM come out and say anything denouncing the violence. I'm not talking about the violence of police officers. I'm talking about when someone is a protester and they're initiating violence. If anyone has heard anything from these people, please tell us. Also, as a side note, I would like to see something about the allocation of the funds that they've been donated and the millions of dollars and what exactly that's going to. I mean, for them to show us their balance sheet, that might be too much to ask. But, what are they doing? What are they doing? Can you give us a general idea? What does that money go to?
Exactly, and that's a good question. I've heard they collected, I want to say $1 billion, if I'm not mistaken, or somewhere very close to that amount. And
I'm
a lot of that
sorry.
money
Did
is
you
going
say
to
did you say billion with a B?
billion with a B, and a lot of that money has gone to Act Blue, the Biden campaign, and other different organizations. But from what I understand, I thought there were some chapters of BLM that stated that they were looking for money because they hadn't gotten anything. So I'm not sure. It would be interesting to see the money trail. It would be very interesting, and how much the leaders are getting paid. And the leaders
Right.
being, I guess, the founders and
Right.
the chapter or organization, the board or executive leadership or whoever. But it would be interesting to see how much they're getting paid as well.
And they're dividing Black people. And they are condoning the violence of what's going on. They've made other statements since then. So it's not like they're nowhere to be found. They're coming out, they have opportunities, they have spoken, but no one has said, well, look, when you have this, I mean, what is this based on? Because they know Marxism. We know that they're well trained, and they know how that panned out in history. So what you're doing and the way that they're protesting, why don't you break down who are your examples or role models for who did what you're doing and how that's going? How's that going in history? How's that worked out for people? Because Martin Luther King was a non-violent movement. I don't even think you were allowed to have weapons on you if you were going to be in one of King's protests.
Exactly. So, yeah, and they haven't denounced any of it. None of it. Not, they haven't said, no, this is wrong, stop doing it, nothing. But yet and still for the incident that broke out at the Capitol, conservatives have been denying and saying it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong.
Yeah.
This is not who we are, that sort of thing. But no one, and not even just BLM, but even the Maxine Waters and Nancy Pelosi's and Joe Biden's and Kamala Harris's of the world have not denounced any of that.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. Maxine Waters, she said that Donald Trump needs to be tried for first-degree murder.
Oh, wow.
Because of what happened at the Capitol building.
And meanwhile, she said, get in their faces. Don't let anybody of that cabinet have any peace anywhere. Get in their faces, that sort of thing. She incited.
Harassed them.
Yes.
Harassed them.
Harassed.
When you see them out at dinner with their friends or whoever, or at the gas station.
Get
right?
in their faces. Yeah.
But senators and representatives, they can't be impeached. Is that the way that works? It's only presidents?
I don't
know.
That's
we're talking about public officials, politicians that are inciting violence.
Right. That is a very good question. I'm thinking I don't think is impeached, but maybe they can get removed from office because they're trying to do that to Marjorie Taylor Greene. So I'm not sure how that's a very good question. It's a very good question.
Yeah, we want people to see the hypocrisy of this, not just in what people do, but there's got to be equal consequences or equal punishment. Right. And also, I'm glad that they've been running on the news the speech that Donald Trump gave. It was like earlier that day or the day before, where he was saying, go down the street and have a peaceful protest. But, he spoke to people and he never said anything about violence.
No.
So whoever's going to defend him or speak on his behalf in this impeachment, that footage, I would, you remember the screens that we had in elementary school where they put it on a tripod, bring up the white, I'd have that thing right there with a pointer. Look at this. It's unedited from beginning to end. Can anyone show me where?
Right.
Which points the finger back at the people that are making the accusations and making them look like idiots.
Right.
And I mentioned to you before the show, talking about Biden wanted to immunize some of the detainees in Gitmo, like put them on the list above American citizens.
Oh, wow. Okay, what's his rationale for that?
He didn't say, but that's one of the questions I have. He's trying to appease someone. I don't know if it's foreigners. I don't know if it's the dreamers, the softies that feel like if someone is from a third world country or oppressed or downtrodden or a minority, that their quality of life is more valuable than an American citizen. And that's the number one or first thing I'll say about them. The people in Guantanamo Bay are not American citizens. They're not from here. They don't live here. They don't have constitutional rights. They don't. They don't. The only reason they're here is because that's a prison for foreign prisoners of war. And you only throw somebody in that clink if they're an enemy of the state. So you may say, well, they're in prison and we don't want the COVID-19 to spread among the jail. Okay, what about Rahway, Jackson, Rikers Island, and all these prisons with all these inmates? I mean, where are they on the list compared to Guantanamo Bay? So he wanted to do it, but then he was stopped. He caught some pushback for that because I guess he couldn't really give an explanation of why you would. They're so far. They would be so far on the bottom of my list. Like, here's the paper. Like, they're not even. They dropped off. We didn't have room for you on this list. Sorry.
Right.
America first.
Yeah, and it's stupid, actually, just stupid to immunize or vaccinate the people in Gitmo, saying you don't want to spread it there, but yet and still you're letting illegal aliens across the border, the southern border, saying, "Come on in, yes, just come, welcome." It's like, wait a minute, that just doesn't make any sense. It's ridiculous.
And remember, the president to which Biden was a vice for, Barack, he set many Guantanamo Bay people free. These are terrorists that were part of Taliban, Al Qaeda, ISIS, and sent them back to the Middle East so they could tear them more hell.
He did. He did.
Surprise! We slide up on the Sanzia beaches and pop out like a jack in a box.
Yeah,
we got more terror for you. Compliments of the United States of America.
Right. Yeah. The U.S. taxpayer. Gosh. Everybody's fairy godmother. There's centers for, I think, children and families. And I think the one for children, or the ones for children, they are 80% full now. So again, folks are starting to send their children up, and I'll say children in quotes because some of these people are definitely adults. They're sending their children up alone, unaccompanied, and this is the same thing that happened when Obama was in. Sending their unaccompanied minors, I think that's what they were calling them, up to the southern border in hopes that they can get in and that sort of thing. And then we've got the caravans coming again. So it's like, enough. Something's got to give.
While we're on Biden, I want to mention that this came out within the last week. There was news that he wanted to appoint federal agents on a task of combating xenophobia.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Wow.
I don't know if that's domestic, international, but
No telling.
I don't know. If you just want to grow government and give your friends jobs without accountability, just be honest about it.
Yeah.
You're gonna give them a title and a position of something that they not only can't prove that they're doing, they can't prove their progress.
Right. There's nothing objective about it. It's all subjective.
There's no people that they could ever point to and say, see, those people there, we changed their minds or changed their hearts, or now they're no longer have a phobia of people from other countries coming to America. It's so tax dollars at work.
There you go. Exactly.
It's mush. It's all over the place. There's nothing. There's no way that you can do that. I have so many questions about how he wants to do something, how he wants to do stuff. You remember during Black Lives Matter protests and some of the rioting, you heard some people say, well, tear gas is against the Geneva Convention. That's illegal. No, it's not. No, it's not. Come on in, everybody. Take a seat. I'm here to educate people. So the Geneva Convention, that has to do with like an international committee about war and the way war is waged. And there's certain weapons like mustard gas and napalm and maybe the neutron bomb, or things that would just go in and maim and hurt people, and then they would have long lingering effects where it's sadistic or inhumane, where the point of winning a war, the soldiers that you're fighting, you want to take them out quick, and you're trying to acquire certain land. This city, this hill, this bank, this property, we're taking over, because that's how wars are won.
Mm-hmm.
So tear gas is something that makes you cry. It burns your eyes, but there's never been, this is legal all over the country.
Right.
There are riot squads all over the country that can use this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like caffeine in a cup of coffee, that it goes out of your system. 2 or 3 hours later, after you felt the effects of the tear gas, you'd feel like you never knew you had it, or something is gone. So people they need to be factual about what they're saying. But I tell you what does resemble napalm, something of the Geneva Convention, is Molotov cocktails. Fire in a bottle. Napalm burns people and they got these terrible scars. Well, you're trying to set somebody on fire. So don't talk about tear gas with the police. If I had to choose between one or the other, please, tear gas, hit me. I can take it. It's all right. Many airlines are going to mandate that the pilots of the airline take a furlough for 1 to 2 months.
Okay.
And I heard somebody say, like, they thought a furlough was a leave of absence, or take a furlough with pay. No, like the police officers in Rochester, they're suspended with pay.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not going to be on a job and still be able to collect a check. They said that these pilots are taking a furlough, which is you don't get paid. Now, I used to work for Delta. I know how it was at other airlines. Delta made sure that the pilots got paid more than anyone else in the company, even more than the CEO.
Okay.
Because the pilots are the heart of an airline. And if they go away, it doesn't matter how great your customer service is at the kiosk in the airport.
Right.
Doesn't matter how nice people are, how professional. Right. It's like no planes are flying if you make the pilots go away. I mean, we've had flights continuing and going on over the last several months. We didn't separate the people sitting in the aisles. They may have had them distance each other, but the guys that's in the cockpit, they got a steel door separating themselves from the rest of the passengers, or it's the same 2 or 3 guys in there. So in a way, they're safer. And then, of course, people should still wear their masks. Right. So when they're telling this story, they're saying, somebody said, well, we're worried about when they come back to work, they're going to be kind of rusty. That's not what I'm thinking about. That they may forget how to fly a plane. I mean, it may not be like learning how to ride a bike or driving a car, because there's more controls, of course, but you were driving a car. If you go 18 months or 2 years without a car and you're on the bus, when you get a car again, you're not going to forget how to drive it. So that's not even a concern. I'm thinking about their pockets and their families and how that's going to affect them. And I interviewed the head of JetBlue and some other airlines. And they showed American Airlines. I don't know if they were just showing them or they're going to be one of them.
Gotcha. Well, the thing is, just because they're being furloughed doesn't mean they're not going into a simulator every now and then and maybe learning different things and doing professional development. So just because they're furloughed for 2 months does not mean that they're still not doing things to keep their skills up. And like you said, just because you're not flying for 2 months doesn't mean that all of a sudden you forget how to fly. I mean, they've been doing this for years, and a lot of them have been in the military, the Air Force, and different military branches learning how to do this. So this is this is their expertise. And just because they don't do it for 2 months doesn't mean they lose their expertise. Secondly, for their families, yeah, this is going to be a kind of a bite for them for the next 2 months for furlough. However, at the same time, that's better than being completely shut down. Because, during
Yeah.
all of this, they could have been shut down and not have a job to go back to. So this is with Delta. I think he said this is with Delta. With Delta looking out for their pilots and their employees that aren't pilots, to make sure that there is still a company to go back to. And again, this is through no fault of their own that they're having to go through this. So,
Yeah.
and this is teaching all of us, not just Delta pilots, everybody, you've got to save money for the rainy days because they will come. You just got to be
Yeah.
prepared for them. I mean, that's all that this is. And this, again, it's something out of everybody's control. So, yeah, just, it's tough. It's tough. It really is.
I know at my company, they furloughed a lot of guys last year.
Mhm.
And what they did was, I mean, whatever you may think about this, it was like in April. And they said by July 1st, you have to take your furlough. For some people, it was 2 weeks. For others, it was a month. But at least they let them know in advance so that they could adjust or set up whatever budget that they could do.
Yeah.
So hopefully they let them know that, and pilots do make pretty good money, and you just gotta communicate to people and let them know. We talked about protecting the borders,
Mhm.
American borders, and how important that is, and not having these sanctuary cities or just letting anyone come in without a vetting process. And I was thinking about that and connecting it to the Native Americans at the time when settlers were coming here and the first Americans were moving out west and founding and establishing and setting themselves up. And it just made me think the Native Americans, they didn't have any province, or they may have had cities, but I don't remember them having a government. Like I've seen in history where they've had a council, like where the chiefs would come together and have meetings.
Yeah.
But you need borders, and that might have made a difference for them, because my understanding is that the the people from England and Europe came here looking for the New World, that they met with those Native Americans, and at some point they said, "Well, this is our land." And it's like, "Well, what part of it is your land? What part? You let us know. I know where the property line is around my house. That's good for me, and it's also good for the people that I want to keep off my property.
Right.
Or if I'm threatening them or letting them know that if they cross a line or get on it, that they may get hurt. If I'm just, it's not like that with homes,
Yeah.
but that's the way it was. I'm just saying. So to just say, well, anywhere there's dirt, that's our land. From sea to shining sea, those are the borders, right? East Coast, West Coast, Canada, and I guess Mexico wasn't established at the time, but it's good to be specific. It's good to say that, and that might have made a difference. You know, Israel became a country, meaning they got borders.
Hmm.
All right. Before that, they were kind of how the Nation of Islam is now. Wherever the people go, that's where the country is.
Hmm.
There is no nation on a map that you can find that says Islam. Buy me 2 tickets. I'm going there next week. Like that's where the people are, but the people are constantly moving.
Yeah.
And that's it wouldn't be the same thing that would happen to us if we did what Ocasio-Cortez wants and the borders went away. But it's very hard to enforce your country
Right.
or anything. All the cities, all the city limits, all the state lines, those need to be very clear what
Yeah.
those are and where those are.
Yeah. Well, you don't have a country if you don't have borders. I mean, you can't have national sovereignty without borders. AOC is coming up with this thing, open borders, and there's an open borders lobby and that sort of thing. Well, your home has borders, not just your
Right,
property, but the house itself. So if you don't have
right,
borders, if you don't have any of that, then anybody can just come and walk through your house. It's like it just
Right.
doesn't make sense. There's no.
Right. I'm planning next week to go squatting on AOC's property
Yeah,
because she doesn't have borders.
no
So
borders.
I don't know where she begins and I end. I can
Right.
come over and I can get on the swing. I can chill on a motorcycle in the driveway. It doesn't matter. I mean, if she really believes this, that's the thing. These people are saying what they believe, but they don't want to apply it to their own lives.
There you go. Exactly. Called hypocrisy. It is. It really is.
I wonder how many of these people live in a gated community or have a, have a fence around their house. Some of them got an electric fence, barbed wire.
Well, they have a fence around the Capitol, so right.
Yeah, right.
So they want sovereignty around the Capitol, but not around the country. Okay, no borders. Borders just on the Capitol, just not the country. So yeah, interesting.
Man, really to live on that cloud, that
Yeah.
floating cloud, that magic carpet floating in the air.
There you go.
Yeah, my thought for the day, something I've been thinking about is as far as Christians go in the church, and you've heard people say that the church is a hospital, right? The church is a place for the spiritually sick. I just feel like we should stop saying that because it's almost giving a message like, come on into the hospital, meaning get saved. You could be here 20, 30, 40 years, and this is where you're supposed to be, sick, stuck, stay where you are. Instead of saying that, why not say the church is a place for you to get healed and for you to get well, right? Like I used to say, like I've been hearing this for years, and my first thoughts on that were, well, a hospital has sick people, but also has doctors and nurses. Maybe I can come and I can get well, and then I can be one of the doctors. Instead of just, you know what I mean? I don't like low ceilings, and the standard bar is just dropped. I'm not talking about physical ailments, which to me are harder to heal from or to get cured for. I'm talking about spiritual, and God is good and He's fair, and everything that's in a person, everything that's not of God, God has a way for us to get healed from that or to overcome that. So that's just something that I would like to see.
Interesting. And yeah, that's very interesting. What if there were traffic jams to church as there are to work and sporting events and those kinds of things? What a different world it would be. There were actually traffic jams to church. The quote for today from Thomas Paine, and it goes, their founder's quotes: "A body of men holding themselves accountable to nobody ought not to be trusted by anybody." So there's a quote for the day, one of our founders' quotes. And thank you for listening to this episode of Brutally Honest Talk Radio. Reach out to us at brutehonest@gmail.com, and you're going to hear that again in our closing. So let me ask you to do this. Leave a 5-star review for us wherever you listen to this podcast. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button on YouTube and also the notifications button so you'll be notified when we upload a new episode. And with that, we'll talk to you next time.
And we also have some good news. We want to let people know we recently got on Spotify. So for all the people that go there or have subscriptions to it, you can find us there. You got to put in like all the words Brutally Honest Talk Radio, and we are right at the top among the first 2 or 3. And you know how great Spotify is? I don't have to tell you, but there's one other place you can find us now.
Thank you for listening to Brutally Honest Talk Radio. If there's a topic you'd like us to cover, reach out at bruthonest@gmail.com. That's BRUT, honestradio@gmail.com.